Revenge films.
My name is Thomas. I had a girlfriend named Karen whom I had been dating for a few years. We weren't living together yet, but I had already met her parents a number of times, and she had met my family as well. In our situation, we were practically engaged. Then one day, out of nowhere, she told me she had a new guy joining our team that was going to be her junior colleague. That in itself should have been a great thing to hear, and I was happy for her. However, ever since then, it became all she would talk to me about. Even when she and I would be alone together, she was always talking to me about this junior colleague of hers. Of course, that wasn't interesting for me at all, so I decided to confront her about it one day. "Hey, you've been talking about that guy a lot recently. To be honest, it's not so nice for me. Because think about if it were the opposite situation. Wouldn't you be a little bit frustrated if I was always talking about a girl from my workplace, especially if you don't know her?" When I said that, her response was,
What? Are you being serious? What is this, jealousy?
even though I was trying to have a serious conversation with her, she just tried to laugh it off and brush it off. I tried not to think too much of it, but that is until one day when I happened to go over to the apartment where she was living. To my disbelief, I saw that junior colleague of hers walking out of her apartment. At that time, more than anger or sadness, I was more overwhelmed with the feeling that, of course, that was the situation. Because even when I was alone with my girlfriend, she was always talking about this guy who was apparently her boyfriend. And, well, of course, any love that I had left for her instantly blew away in that moment, and I decided without thinking twice about it that we were going to break up. However, it was really irritating to me that I was simply a victim and she got to do whatever she wanted. So in addition to breaking up with her, I decided to get my justice. On that day, I decided not to go to her apartment, and I simply went straight home. After that, I applied for some days off of work, and I received 3 days off. On the very first day, I went and purchased a video recorder. That evening, I went to my girlfriend's apartment, and I acted like everything was normal. We were having dinner as we normally would, and I told her that starting from tomorrow, I'd be going away on a business trip from one night, and that I would be back in 2 days. But then my girlfriend put on an act and said,
Aw, I'm gonna miss you so much.
That's what she said in words, but I could see it in her eyes as she was smiling. And that's probably because she knew that if I wasn't around, she would be able to meet up with her boyfriend as much as she wanted. But she had no idea the punishment that I had waiting for her. So the next day, I grabbed the video camera that I bought and rented a car, and I parked the car in the parking lot outside my girlfriend's apartment. And I waited there. Not long after waiting, Karen came home, and just as I expected, she wasn't alone. She was walking hand in hand with her boyfriend as she went into her apartment. And then I quietly got out of the car, and I went up to her apartment, and I put my ear against the door. Just as I imagined, the two of them were completely switched on, and they were having a grand old time in their own little world. Even though it was the middle of the day in the afternoon, and their window was open and I could see everything inside, they didn't seem to pay any mind to that, and were getting prepared to get things on, as they were getting undressed to get in the shower. From there, I needed the rest of my plan to go smoothly, and I was going to call her father and expose the disgraceful behavior of his daughter. And so I stepped away from the door of our apartment, and I picked up the phone and I called her father. He picked up immediately and sounded happy to hear from me. "Hey, Thomas, what's going on?" Her father answered the phone in high spirits. When I heard his voice, I have to admit that it did hurt me a little bit with what I was about to tell him. But I took a deep breath and I told myself what I needed to do. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm calling you today because I'm going to be breaking up with your daughter. When I said that, of course, her father started panicking on the other side of the phone, and he asked me what my reasoning was. I think if you take a look at the video that I'm about to show you, you'll be able to understand why. That was all I said, and then I asked her father to switch the phone to a video call. And then, with one hand, I turned on the video camera that I had, and on the other hand, I connected it to my cell phone. And then, with both hands fully repaired, I barged into my girlfriend's apartment. When I slammed the door open, I announced myself loud and clear. "Yes, hello, nice to see you all," I said with a bright and happy and energetic voice. I was picturing myself like I was on TV, one of those shows where they prank celebrities and barge in to reveal the prank to them. The two of them had already come out of the shower and they were right in the middle of the act. When the doors slammed open, they both looked up and they saw me standing in the doorway. My girlfriend and her boyfriend were fully naked on top of each other and they froze on the spot. "Yes, nice, this is perfect, don't mind me, keep going, keep doing what you were gonna do." And I turned both cameras towards them. "Karen, say hello to your father. Sir, are you seeing all this? Are you catching this?" As I said that, I also turned on the light to the bedroom. My girlfriend and the guy were still frozen in their position, butt naked, and then I turned the phone on speaker, and I could hear her father absolutely panicking. In the end, I heard him say, "I'm going to be right there, you better not move," and he hung up the phone. For the record, she finally spoke up and said,
What? Why? What's going on? How? What?
Karen was panicking, but then suddenly her boyfriend pushed her off of him, and even though he was butt naked, he tried to make his escape. But obviously there's no way that I was gonna let him get away. The moment he tried to pass by next to me, I kicked him right in the abdomen and knocked him over. And then I grabbed the naked man's body and threatened him by saying, "If you try to run away now, you know your life is going to be over." When I said that, the guy started shaking from head to toe and he froze on the ground. Fortunately, at that moment, the camera was facing a different direction, so me kicking him and threatening him were not on camera. Then, as if she was reading from a script, my girlfriend started, saying,
This isn't what it looks like. It's all a misunderstanding. You have to forgive me.
She kept repeating. During that time, her father and mother arrived at the apartment. Based on how quickly they arrived, they must have sped down the highway to get here as soon as possible. As soon as they arrived, her father went in to tie his daughter down, and her mother was also helping him. I did think it was a little bit much to record the violence, so I decided to turn off the cameras at this point. While her parents were busy with her, I asked the guy if he was married or not, but he told me that he wasn't married and he was living at home with his parents. But I made him pull out his driver's license and I took note of his home address. I told him that I was going to come to his house and tell his parents everything that happened, but the man was simply crying on the floor. "Please, anything but that! Please spare me!" It was all he could say. By the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but this woman and I were actually engaged. And after destroying that situation and completely destroying my life, you better not think that you're gonna get away with nothing here. As I said that, I threw his clothing at him and I threw him out of the apartment. And then when I looked over at my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend, she was sitting on the bed sobbing as her parents yelled at her. I didn't care what happened to my ex-girlfriend at that point, so I told her on the spot that we were going to be breaking up. And of course we weren't going to be getting married anymore, so I served her the court papers for the settlement fee. When she saw that, my ex-girlfriend screamed.
No, please, no!
It was such a high-pitched shriek, and then her parents got down on their knees to apologize to me. Please, Thomas, is there any way that you could please forgive her? They were desperately begging me, but there was no way I was going to consider it. But it's not like things could all be settled on the spot, given what a disaster it was. And since this was our engagement and it was also going to involve my parents, I decided to let things calm down for the time being. But of course, I had already firmly decided that there was no way I was ever going to marry this woman. And then, a couple of days later, we decided to have a discussion with all of the family present at our house. Although it wasn't much of a discussion, it was more so that me and my parents told them that we were going to cut off all ties with them, and she and her parents got down on their knees and were continually apologizing to us. Of course, my parents had known my ex-girlfriend for a number of years at this point, and because we were also engaged already, they thought that she was going to become their future daughter-in-law, and they didn't have any suspicions about her. But after this incident, this meant that their son was being played for all of these years. So of course there's no way that they were going to forgive her, and my mother in particular was furious at her.
I can't believe that you were about to make such a witch and a slut your wife. This must be some kind of joke. You better hurry up and pay that full settlement fee, and you're never going to show your face in front of my son ever again.
I had never heard my mother raise her voice like that. Of course, neither my father nor I were going to disagree with that. We simply nodded our heads. In the end, her parents had no choice but to accept the situation as well. And then, I also made sure that her boyfriend got the punishment that he deserved. I sent a full notice of events to not only his family hospital, but also to his company, and I collected a full settlement fee from him as well for the destruction of our engagement. But then one day, I don't know where he got my phone number from, but I received a direct phone call from the guy. Hey, why did you have to tell my parents and my workplace about what happened? I asked you not to say anything. I begged you to just let me go. Thanks to you, my life is a disaster. You've ruined everything. When he said that to me, crying, I couldn't help but laugh. What do you mean, why? I only did the obvious. You were my fiancé's junior colleague, and you took that position and stole my fiancé and destroyed my engagement and therefore my future. Surely you thought about the consequences when you did that. All I did was to sleep with her. Why am I having to pay a settlement fee? What's going to happen to me now? What's going to happen to the rest of my life? You're probably going to spend the rest of your life paying the settlement fee to me and dealing with the regret of what you've done. When I said that, he was crying and screaming on the other end of the phone, but it was none of my business anymore. I found out that because he laid hands on his senior colleague at work, everybody in the office found out about it, and they shunned him. He was no longer able to go to work anymore, and he resigned. I also heard that he was kicked out of his family home. As for my ex-fiancée, her company found out that despite having a fiancé, she laid hands on her junior colleague at work, and just like him, she was shunned by everyone at work. She was no longer able to stand it, and she also resigned from the company. I received multiple messages from her crying and begging for forgiveness, but of course I ignored all of them. She was trying to say things like, I couldn't believe that my ex-fiancé, who was laughing and saying that I was just being jealous, was now begging to get back together with me. But of course there was no way that I was ever gonna want to start over with her, so I ignored all of her messages. And in the end, I had the two of them pay a high, full settlement fee towards me. Thanks to that, they were both left riddled with debt, and I heard that they were both disowned by their parents. But they did it to themselves. They only got what they deserved.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.